Hello, party poopers, and welcome to another episode of Late to the Party podcast. Oh, it's going to be a great one today. A fantastic interview. You're not going to you're not going to believe what this one's about. The subject matter is something that everyone's going to be fascinated by, and I think all of you are going to really enjoy. What the hell is it? I know I'm in the suburbs, but we're in a fairly leafy suburb. But why the hell is there a horse just shown up at my door? Hello, horse? Is your owner anywhere around? What's going? It's really freaky. You're freaking me out. Would you mind leaving? I'm actually just trying to record this. Well, how dare you two? Go to hell. What are you? I don't know where you've come from, but you are not welcome into this pod cave. There's not enough room for you, okay? Well, just get the hell out. Go and, I don't know. What the hell do horses do when they're off time? Up yours too. Bloody hell. Well, that was all very unnecessary, or was it? Because today we are going to be talking about animal-assisted therapy training, and particularly equine. Equine, of course, being that's right, horse. And the person we're going to be speaking to is someone that we as a family have been to for a couple of years now. And we absolutely love going to do the equine therapy. We love time with her horses, and we love time with Maggie as well. Okay, so who is Maggie? Well, Maggie is Maggie Broom, and she's a qualified professional specialising in animal-assisted therapy training, particularly equine therapy. She holds credentials in teaching, psychology and counselling, and possesses a PhD in education with a focus on counselling. Her career encompasses a diverse range of roles. Some very interesting stuff has gone on in her life, and we'll talk about that a little bit. She's been a primary school teacher, she's been in adult education, corporate development, she provides counselling and therapy to individuals, couples, groups. Additionally, she has a particular interest in working with individuals on the autism spectrum, and that's why we're talking to her today. I really hope you enjoy it. We'll see you on the other end. Now, before we get on the topic, I noticed on your website this intriguing paragraph.
Oh, yes.
In 1984-85, she spent a year travelling through Australia in a covered wagon pulled by two Clydesdales. Now, I'm sorry, but what is the wagon? You're missing the most important part. Was the wagon a time travel device? And how did you get back to the 1920s to do this?
Yes, it was a time travel device. It gave me lots of time to travel. That's why it was a time travel device. I love travelling, and I've always loved travelling on my own. And I was going through a fairly rough patch where I felt I needed to be on my own for a little while. And so it was an ideal situation. And I could give you a lot of detail about how I came to have the wagon, but it wasn't an old-fashioned style gypsy wagon. It was a currently made gypsy wagon out of steel and... Sorry?
Fiberglass.
Yeah, not fiberglass. What's the word for that stuff that's like board that is... Whatever, it was not fiberboard, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But the canvas top, thin wood sides, steel frame, and car tyre wheels, and two Clydesdale horses. And we just travelled south from Mullaney in Queensland back home to Smith's Gully, and it took. I say a year because I spent quite a lot of time up there working up the horses and getting the wagon ready from the previous owners who'd had it. So it was roughly a year.
Wow.
And I loved it. It was good. It was good stuff. It cleared my head, something amazing.
Oh my God. There was a Australian documentary, or not documentary, I want to talk about a miniseries. Can't remember the name now. Now I know how much Bianca's mum hates it when we do this, so it's Future Dan here. The TV show was The Shearer Lee, which featured Brian Brown. But it was about someone with a wagon in the 1920s looking for work out in the country,
Right.
Awesome. Great series. But I can't get my head around the fact that you're on main roads, like freeways or anything like that.
Yes.
know? And how the Clydesdales were able to cope with the noise and distractions.
Yes. Look, they were fabulous. I loved my horses. I thought they were absolutely sterling. They made the journey possible, of course. And yeah, I mean, we worked things. I mean, like the main roads were wide, and the truckies had CBs, and they'd be radioing through to each other and saying, "Watch out! There's this stupid woman on the freeway." Not the freeway. I never went on a freeway, but yeah, there's this woman on the highway with this gypsy wagon, so watch out for it. And people stopped and helped me. I got a huge bucket of molasses from one truckie who stopped and said, "Here, have some of this." So yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Clydesdales are my favourites. I do love them. I love them a lot.
I love them too. And I have to thank them for clearing my head. That year was particularly good for me.
Calming,
and the other thing it made me realise just how generous people are, because wherever I went, people would say, "Oh, come in for a shower. You must want a shower. We've got a bed to sleep in." And that kind of set me up for being an Australian, because I actually had to leave the wagon and come back to get Australian citizenship.
Right.
So halfway through New South Wales, I had to leave them behind at some very generous farming people who said, no, leave the horses here. You take a bus home. And I did, got the citizenship and went back again.
There's a book here. There's a very, very interesting book.
There is a book, but I've tried to smarten it up a bit and get it published. Maybe now's the time. I don't know. But tell you what, it's it did make me feel just how wonderful people are.
Well, that's interesting. Now, there's another part I saw on the website, which was something I just wanted to get some more clarification, sort of maybe elaboration, was that your doctoral thesis was a qualitative study of how people experience belonging, which explored the variety of ways in which people felt a comfortable sense of, this is where I fit.
Yeah.
I need some elaboration on that.
Well, I just finished doing a 2-year counselling course, a postgraduate counselling course, which really had me thinking about being Australian. And I had been Australian for quite a few years by then.
Okay.
And I had felt an immense sense of loss when I left the UK. And I just wondered how other people dealt with not feeling, not belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And all the research about belonging used belonging as a measure rather than a thing in its own right. So, they would do research projects on, whether this intervention increases a sense of belonging or that intervention increases a sense of belonging. But nobody actually had defined in any of the stuff that I'd read what a sense of belonging actually felt like. So I just asked people. It was a qualitative study. I didn't have any randomized controlled trials or anything, but I just went and asked people and did what qualitative research does, and it was fabulous. I really enjoyed doing it, which is quite unusual, I think, for a PhD. And well, no, you hear people go, "Oh God, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that," and I was thinking, this is amazing. This is so interesting.
Of course, it should be that way. Jeez.
So that was good. I wouldn't necessarily call it fun. It was hard work.
Yeah.
But, yes, I don't necessarily use it directly in my therapy work at the moment, but I do feel like it's a really important part of what it is that people are looking for when they are looking for some kind of therapeutic answer to what's going on for them, if they don't like what's happening for them. I'm looking for, what helps people to fit in place.
I get that, but also as an autistic person myself, I don't really
Yeah.
belonging is not really a high priority for me.
No.
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 No. So I do
Like,
wonder. I mean, it's lovely. I mean, belonging in the sense of that this is I'm doing the podcast,
yeah.
but I'm doing that more as an outreach. Not it's part of it's me learning. I'm doing it as a means to learn new things and
Yeah.
learn things about autism and that sort of stuff. But a lot of it's about other people finding their sense of belonging. But I'm also aware that there's probably
Yeah.
a lot of autistic people who don't need companionship. They don't need a lot of friendship. They don't need a lot of that kind of stuff. They just want to do what they want to do. Do you see that there can be sort of that sort of sense?
Yes, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. And that's what came up for a number of people, that
Right.
belonging doesn't necessarily have to be being with friends.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be being with other people even. And actually what sparked me was the ugly duckling story, which I presume you're familiar with.
Yep.
Like, the ugly duckling was teased and bullied by all the farmyard animals until he turned into a swan and joined the swans, because he looked like a swan. He didn't look like a duckling.
Mm-hmm.
And my thesis question was, what would have happened if he'd actually just been an ugly duckling? What would have happened if he was a duckling and nobody liked him, and he had to stay being a duckling? Where would he get his sense of belonging then? And I really reject the whole notion that you have to look like something and be beautiful in order to fit in.
Yes.
So that's when I was tearing apart the ugly duckling story. And so then I said, well, how do people feel a sense of belonging? And I think you've alluded to it when you've been saying, I like to do my own things. I like to, I'm doing this stuff as a side thing. That's where some people get their sense of belonging.
Yes.
I interviewed a guy who said he got his sense of belonging out of being in a band. He was an architect, but he got of belonging out of being in a band and not being a particularly good musician, but nothing to do with architecture, nothing to do with friends, just to do with being part of something. And that was like, being part of humans, other people. But I've had other people who say, yeah, my sense of belonging is very much related to them.
Yep, absolutely. That's a beautiful idea.
When I see landscapes like my home landscape, I feel my heart swell. So there are a lot of ranges of things, but it doesn't mean you have to have a lot of good buddies to have a feel of sense of belonging.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I mean, I actually, for the very first time, the only time in my life I felt a sense of belonging to country was in Alice Springs, of all places.
Really?
Bizarre, but just that, I don't know what it was, but I just felt a sense of, belonging there.
Yes, this is,
But belonging to me can be listening to music, but just sitting in here listening to music.
Yes.
Is that belonging?
Well, depending. Again, I feel like, whoever I interviewed defined it their own way. And that I thought was really important, that I allowed them to define what it was for them. Because, we can all wax lyrical about how important it is to have social networks and this and that and the other.
Yes.
But maybe there are other ways that people get that sense of, this is where I fit.
Yes.
And it may not necessarily be in a bunch of pals. They may have a bunch of pals where they fit very nicely, but there may be other ways. I had one woman explain how she really felt she belonged because she knew the system in a school where her kids had gone and where she had worked, and she knew how the whole school ran, and she said, I feel like I belong here, I know it well. And that was her sense of belonging to a system.
This is really interesting for a late diagnosed autistic person because I think it's fairly common that most of us don't have a sense of belonging in ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we've been something else. We've been our masks. We've been, or whatever we've had to do to get through. And so I got to that point where and still at this point is saying, I don't really know who I am, so I don't even have a sense of belonging in myself.
Yep. Yes. And when people are feeling that way, it's you're kind of on a what am I thinking? Like a loose line. I can't think of the right metaphor. But I had in my preliminary study, which I did before the main study, I had one person say, look, when I'm feeling good, I feel like I belong to the universe, and that is,
Mhm.
for me, that's an amazing sense of oneness. Okay, and I feel like what you're talking about is the opposite extreme. That that where do I find some sense of um, rightness or fit or whatever? And I know that, I mean, it's not just people on spectrum, but I think people on the spectrum find it very, very hard.
That's it.
Um,
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's that who am I, which I've used this a lot in the podcast, is when the director says cut
yes.
and I get to just shake off the masks if I'm able to.
Yep.
What is that when the director says cut? What
Yeah.
is that person? But belongingness can come from learning about definitions and understanding those things. That
Yes.
does aid and incorporate into yourself that sense of understanding yourself, and you get to I think the belongingness can happen in that too.
And what you said about learning, I think when people have stopped learning or they've stopped having curiosity, I think
Yes,
that's a really dangerous time for them.
absolutely, it really is.
Yes, and so one of the things that I really try to incorporate is generating a sense of curiosity in the work that we do with the horses.
Yep.
And yeah, it's very difficult because, I mean, looking through all the psychological literature, there are so many ways that people try to describe the self, whether it's one self
Yes.
or whether it's an emerging self or whether there are many selves. And so yeah, I think we all have to find our own way there about whether I'm the same self that I was 5 years ago or the same self that I was when I was a kid. How on earth can we know that? We just
It's an awesome topic. So
yeah,
much to it.
we could talk for hours
I
on
know.
this.
Well, I've got a good segue song, whether it's a good segue or a crappy segue, and I think this is a good segue about learning, because I wanted to look at your educational experiences. So, when you were still in England, what were you doing? Were you still at university? Were you a teacher at that point?
Yeah. Look, we came to Australia when I was 30, and I'd had a very brief career in primary teaching.
Yep.
And I'd really found that incredibly hard, and decided it wasn't for me. And lots of good reasons for that, but it just wasn't working for me. So I ended up doing a secretarial course and became an admin officer. But I ended up being an admin officer in a psychology department, having already studied psychology. And so I'm gradually drawn back into the whole psychology thing at a different level. Yeah. Because I so wanted to do right by the kids that I was teaching.
Yeah.
But there was one time, and this was way back in the 70s, where we had 50 children and 2 teachers in one big room, and it just didn't work. And so it was a very stressful time for the other teacher.
And disparate age groups too? It wasn't all just...
It was all the same age group, but they'd just come through from what was kindergarten in those infants, called it in the UK. So they weren't used to a school routine. And so I didn't enjoy that. And then when I got a classroom of my own with kids, that was better. But I still felt like I was betraying what I'd started teaching for, because I'd hated my own school as a child. I'd never really, really liked being at school, and I would do anything to get out of it. And I really wanted to.
No arguments from a lot of our listeners.
Yes. And look, it wasn't because people were horrible necessarily. Well, yes. It was, look, people were teachers. No, I don't want to slag the teachers, because I think they were all doing the best they possibly could.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And so there you go. That's why I left teaching, went into secretarial work, loved doing admin at the psychology department at Nottingham University.
Yeah.
And then came to Australia. And
you've done a psychology degree or anything at that point?
Yes, psychology and biology joint. So I was always interested in the animal side of things. Multiple pets as a child. had always been interested in horses.
Yes.
Had always, biology and psychology. The two favourite subjects for me.
Well, how's the counselling fit in around that?
Well, I didn't particularly want to be a psychologist.
Right.
But what I did want to do was to learn how to be a counsellor. So after we'd been in Australia for a while, I had heard of the counselling course at La Trobe University, the Bachelor of Education in Counselling, and I'd had such good reports of it. I was just delighted when I got into that. I was over the moon. And I studied counselling as opposed to psychology, which is very much to do with statistics, and not all. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting stuff in psychology that I am interested in, but I felt it was psychology in itself is very much to do with testing,
Yes.
Whereas counselling is to do with understanding and finding meaning.
Okay.
So for me, counselling seemed the way to go. And then when I'd done that, I had the opportunity to do the PhD and pursue the counselling PhD, and then that's how it all started.
How did the writing for the disabled come into play?
Writing for the disabled came in, 1980s. I went on the wagon trip. 2000s, I was going through a bit of a dip again, and I thought, I know what I need to do. I need to volunteer somewhere.
Right.
This is a good thing to do. This will snap me out of it.
Yep.
And that's when I went along to the volunteer resource centre and got the brochure and rang up and said, "Hey, need me," and that was good.
Oh,
so
it's fascinating. So it's similar to what I did when I got out of school and I didn't know what to do. I just sort of went back to my high school and talked to a careers advisor and say, what should I start doing? And, I started volunteering.
And look, it's difficult because as a counsellor or as a therapist, I don't advise people. But on the other hand, I just think that to get you out of a mess or to get you thinking a little bit clearer, it's always a good idea to just check out what's going on for other people. And so that's how I got quite deeply into RDA. We were out at the Ivanhoe campus of, the Mernda campus of Ivanhoe Grammar School, which was, at the time, it was surrounded by countryside. Now it's surrounded by houses. And so we were there for a couple of years, and then we moved into Bandura.
Right.
That's still running.
So we're getting towards your business.
Yes.
I always find it hard to call what it's called, service business. Great horse learning, growth and learning. How did you get into setting this up? And when did the horses come about? Where like
horses come about? Well, I've always had horses. Whatever happened, part of the reason we moved to Australia is because we wanted to get a bigger opportunity to keep horses, because in the UK land is very, very expensive, and we weren't country folk. We hadn't, we didn't inherit farms or anything like that. Yeah. So when the opportunity to emigrate came up, we said, we can buy a bit of land and keep some horses. And that felt great, because I actually left behind a lovely black mare when we left England, and I was a bit sad to leave her behind. But when we got to Australia, we came out here. After a couple of years, we bought the place here in Smith's Gully. And I was talking to a friend at the time, and somehow or other, we both came up with the idea that equine psychotherapy was a thing, and we didn't know. We'd heard it somewhere, and so we looked on the internet, and there was nothing at all. We couldn't. And then we found this one guy who said he was a doctor up in Wangaratta, and that was the one link that we found, and that was 2008.
Whoa. Okay.
So nobody had heard of equine therapy at that point, apart from Riding for the Disabled.
Exactly, yeah.
It's Riding for the Disabled, riding. Yeah. But this guy was talking about equine psychotherapy, and So we rang him and said, can we come and visit you? And we drove up to Angaratta and met this guy, and he gave us some names to follow up. And we ended up doing training for Igala psychotherapy, which was an American organization.
Yep.
And since then, I've done lots and lots of other trainings with different organizations and different people, and kind of just put together what I feel is important to put into an equine therapy program.
Okay. So what you have on the website basically says that it's offering personal development of therapy through the medium of horses.
Yes.
Clients can attend equine facilitated learning sessions for personal growth, social skills development. There's also, you do sessions for counselling and psychotherapy as well. So basically, in essence, Grey Horse is like an animal-assisted therapy. How does therapy with horses differ from sort of traditional therapy methods, do you think?
Probably should ask some of my clients. Oh, you have a
looking behind me.
Look around. A lot of ways, and I think that the most fundamental way is it is outside for a start, and it's not two people sitting in an office opposite each other, or with toys to play with if you're working with kids, or sheets of cognitive behavior therapy things to tick off.
Yeah.
Yes, it's much more relaxed. And I always try to encourage people to think about the fact that therapy, on occasions, should be fun. That it should not necessarily be
devastating.
Yeah, devastating. And it should be challenging. It should be challenging, but
Yes.
there should be fun times, because otherwise, no wonder there are people who won't go to therapy.
Yes.
And partly because it is no fun sitting and really working hard at what the hell is going on inside you, with the sense that, no, maybe there's something wrong with me. And so that's the other thing. I do try to impress upon people that, mostly speaking, it's called solution focused stuff, that they've got the solutions inside them, that they can do whatever it is or what they need to do, because they've already got the skills to do that. And for some people, it's just trying to work out what it is they need to do. For other people, it's, I know what I need to do, but I don't know how to do it.
Yep.
But so essentially, it's a way of, therapy should be a way of just helping people to make sense of the world, and the world includes themselves. Horses makes it different because, first of all, what you're doing is helping people to feel in control.
Yep.
Because you never want to put them into a position where they're feeling out of control with the horse. But when you are actually in control of a 500 kilogram horse, it makes a difference to how you feel about yourself. Because if you can ask a horse to move and the horse does, or if you can ask the horse to stand still while you brush it, or whatever it is, you are already feeling in control. So there's a whole bunch of different levels that where working with horses works. It can be just calming for a kid or an adult to just brush a horse regularly with rhythmic brushing. And here I'm doing it, and I know you can't see me.
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
The rhythm is one of the things that works for people on the spectrum, and we know that from people's experience. But people like oh God, I keep forgetting his name. The guy who took the Romanian children from the orphanages and did a lot of work on rocking and drumming and rhythmic stuff that really helps to regulate people. When you're feeling upset, go for rhythm, go for, and the extreme case is banging your head against a wall, but you don't want to be hurting yourself. But there is a reason why people do that. There is a reason why, and I don't like to call it stimming when we hear people talking about people on the spectrum making movements, but often it's a movement that they need to make to self-soothe, to regulate themselves. And it's often
also place them in a space as well.
Yes, this is where I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it is a big thing. Now, look, the last couple of days, there's been some changes within Australia to NDIS. Clients have been getting messaged, and one thing I did notice on one of the pages that was on yellow ladybugs was a lot of fear regarding equine therapy. and
Yes.
whether it's going to still be funded. Now, a lot of people quelled that they were able to explain, but
Yes.
here's the crux of it, and I guess this question goes broader than just what we're talking about. Is the difference between a mental health professional
Yes.
utilizing
Yes.
equine therapy and someone who happens to be good with animals.
Yes.
And there are, I believe, services out there, they're probably all over the world, where there is that distinction that people may not realise.
Yes. And I think it's really important to be clear about that before you sign on to somebody who is offering you equine therapy.
Yep.
Because technically, as an IGALA trained person, IGALA is very, very strict about two things. One is that you must have a mental health professional person there who is qualified in mental health, and it can be an occupational therapist or a speech therapist or a psychotherapist, but they must have mental health qualifications.
Yep.
And IGALA also says there must be somebody there who is at least well experienced with horses and preferably qualified with horses. So they say two people. So you can't really go wrong there. But for me, I like to work on my own because I don't like to offer the idea of one person working with a horse while two people are talking about them and discussing. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer to work on my own, because I think the relationship between the therapist and the client is important, even though the relationship between the client and the horse is what we're really looking at. What is the client seeing in the horse? What is the client doing with the horse? What is the horse telling, in inverted commas? And I don't believe in the mystic sort of, horses are sent to heal us stuff. I base everything I do on good sound science, and there's a lot of good sound science behind equine therapy. So yes, I don't think there should be any problem with anybody who does equine therapy who is a qualified practitioner, because the line items are all there for speech, for counselling, and a counsellor must be a member of the Australian Counselling Association, or PACFA, the Psychotherapists and Counsellors Federation of Australia. So you know that you're getting somebody who knows what they're doing, rather than someone who is saying, well, I can offer you therapy, but really what I'm doing is showing you how to have a good time with horses. And that can be very good. There's nothing wrong with equine facilitated learning, but it is not necessarily therapy. And I do a lot of equine facilitated learning myself. And I think if you wanted to know the difference, it really is, are you learning horse skills, or are you actually learning about yourself?
Yes.
And there's a lovely book called It's Not About the Horse, which is basically about equine therapy. It's nothing to do with horses, it's to do with the people. But for some people, it is to do with the horses, and in an equine facilitated learning, it's, I feel better because I can lead a horse around, and I didn't know how to do that before. I feel better because this horse is paying attention to me, and this horse comes up and nuzzles me. That doesn't have to be therapy, even though it is very therapeutic.
Absolutely.
But if you're working with a therapist, you're going a lot deeper. Okay. And you also have a greater responsibility to make sure that person is emotionally safe.
Well, this seems like a good time to take a short little breather and give me the opportunity to talk about our Patreon page, which we just set up. It's patreon.com/late-to-the-party autism podcast. Now, it's just the price of a coffee, and if you feel like sort of giving us a little thank you or here's some money towards our monthly costs kind of thing, that's cool. If you don't and can't, that's also cool. So for those who feel like giving some love, well, you know how you can do it now through Patreon. Let's get back to the interview. Well, but before we get into a scenario, a session, a normal, a typical session, let's talk about the horses a bit.
Okay. Yes, go on.
In any way you want. I mean, it's before we get into matching the horse with the client and that sort of reasoning, the horses themselves, what do they mean for you personally?
For me personally, I love them to bits, but I do miss my previous horses. I actually had 3 grey horses to start with.
Right.
That's why it was called Grey Horse Growth and Learning. And I had a little grey Connemara, and I had 2. She was a mare, and I had 2 Arab geldings, and they all had different personalities and different temperaments, and they were a really nice mix. The little Connemara died eventually because she was very old. She was into her 30s. And so then I got a spotty horse and another horse who was also grey. So I had 3 grey horses and 1 spotty one, again, who I loved very much. And then I actually managed to get another horse who was also grey.
Wow.
And this is what happens. You kind of collect things. There's a Facebook meme that goes around which says, why you have, if you buy 1 horse, you actually have to buy 10. But in fact, I've never bought any of my horses. Oh no, I have bought some of them, but the horses I have at the moment are all horses that I'm either borrowing or have come to me because they don't have any other careers. And so they're not performance horses.
Right.
Some of them are very old. Some of them are injured and have physical difficulties. And I think that's really important, that when you're working with horses, that you have horses that are emotionally sound, and also that they're not necessarily glossy and wonderful and able to, turn on a sixpence, because that's how people are. And if they're dirty when the client arrives, that's okay, because life is dirty. And sometimes
if they're stubborn,
they can be stubborn. They can be stubborn, because in life you have to deal with stubborn people. And then I kind of reframe that into, well, are they persistent as opposed to stubborn? Because persistent is a positive word and stubborn is a negative word. And so everything the horses do give you an opportunity to just explore a little more. Particularly young kids will say, oh, that horse is a bully. They see the horses jostling each other. Oh, that horse is a bully. So it gives you the opportunity to start talking about, what does it mean to be a bully? Have you ever been a bully yourself? Have you ever been bullied? You see what I mean?
It's absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, you've talked about, there's stubbornness, there's all that sort of stuff, but there's also, unfortunately, death sometimes, which again,
and
it is about the horses, but not.
Yes.
But that is, again, it is an opportunity to, for people to particularly go through with a professional about grief.
Yes. And again, you're obviously well aware that I lost 3 horses in quick succession, all for different reasons. And there was a lot of grief for me there, but as you know, there was grief for clients as well, because they come to know the horses. And that also, I think it's food for, in any situation, there is always food for working with what we need to work with. And so grief is one thing, and I wouldn't necessarily be suggesting that somebody who's experiencing the loss of a loved one necessarily goes and works with grief over a horse that's gone. But I think generic grief, understanding what happens at the end of life, understanding that life is it's a cycle, and that we start and we end. And that, I hope, helps people to value what they've got as well, because I think we all have to enjoy life the best we can, or make our life as meaningful as we can, because I don't think there's an awful lot of meaning out there. Yeah. See what I mean?
Well, but the experiences we're talking about are in this kind of therapy are visceral, as opposed to being like conceptual, really.
Yes.
You're seeing these things. right in front of you, outside. You're smelling them, you're hearing them, you're
Yeah.
sensing them, and then you're noticing their absence as well.
And the sensory stuff, the noticing stuff, I think that goes right across all the therapy work that my horses do. And more I'm getting to understand how important it is for people to be alert to their sensory experiences. I talk a lot at the beginning of any kind of therapeutic relationship about observing and noticing and paying attention to what's going on in the horses, because that's how the horses communicate. And that, I think, for people on the spectrum is also quite important for them to understand that horses communicate in different ways from people, and different people communicate in different ways from each other.
Yes.
But if they can start to read a horse, then they can start to read other things that are going on. But it's the whole sensory thing. It's being able to listen and to be able to smell, to be able to touch, all those things, and to be able to examine, which things make me feel better and which things make me feel worse. And I know one little boy who absolutely hates the smell of horse poo. So it is not something that he would
Henry?
go for. Yes. And so, pay attention to what your senses are telling you. If you are experiencing a sensory experience that you don't like, that's not going to go into your list of how do I soothe myself? What things do I soothe myself with? I won't be soothing myself by smelling horse poo, but I might soothe myself by smelling a horse's hair and skin and maybe the breath from his nose.
Let's set up a session. Let's and you've got an adult who's coming.
Yep.
Adult's coming in. He's like myself. He or her, they have been late diagnosed. This person would be generally feeling overwhelmed.
Yep.
They're in the process of having to reckon with their past. They're having to deal with the present, and they're worrying about what the future holds. They have a lifetime of masking. They have scripts. They have social anxieties, and probably no idea where to start in that healing.
Yes.
So, how do you go about dealing with someone like that?
Well, normally what I do, but not every time, I would ask them to come for a visit. If they've rung me and they've said, can I, I've heard about equine therapy, can I make an appointment? And I'll say, well, come and have a visit, meet the horses. And when you've done that and you've experienced what the place is like and you've seen the horses and you've met me, then you decide whether you want to book in some sessions. And there's no charge for a visit normally, but if people want to convert a visit into a first session, that's fine too. But for me, it's really important that, particularly with people on the spectrum, is that they feel comfortable enough in the setting, because there may be sounds that upset them. There may be smells that upset them. They may not like. I had one person, because we're on a hill, he found it incredibly hard to walk to the arena from the car because the hill fell away. And that was really hard for him to keep his sense of self when the hill was falling away. So you don't know what people can cope with until they try it.
Okay.
So I introduce them to the horses over the fence. I don't normally let them onto the arena. Normally there will be 4 horses on a sandy arena, and we will stand at the gate and we'll see what happens with the horses. And I will just talk to them a little bit about how I keep the horses, what the horses do, what I would expect to do. And I would say something like, look, if you're interested, we can come and I'll show you how to greet the horses the way they like to be greeted. Have you ever done that before? And a lot of people say, oh, yes, and bit by bit, I'll be asking, have you had therapy before? Because they come here often because they don't like sitting in an office. So I need to find out what not to do, like, so what worked for you in your previous therapy and what would you like to do? What kind of things would you like me to avoid doing? Because often, if it's rainy, we can go and sit inside, but mostly speaking, I like to keep people outside with the horses as much as possible. And again,
have you thought about a horse at this point? Have you actually started to think about which horse would
Not
want to
at
be?
this point. I'll wait and
Ah,
see. As you probably know, there is always one particular horse who always comes up and demands attention. And so very often that will be their first point of contact with my horses. And I will try to, I will set up, I mean, I have to set up some kind of contract, as it were, as to why they're there, what they're looking for.
Yep.
And I try to work on the basis of keeping it really, really simple, because people come and often people with their kids will say, oh, they've got terrible anxiety, or they're depressed, or they've got this, or they've got that, because they've been told by their doctors that they've got something. But what I really want to find out is, what is it that you can't do that you would like to do? And, you know, what kind of things do you do that you'd rather not do? And that's as plain English as I can get, you know? So for somebody who comes along and would like to be able to get out more, they won't leave the house.
Yep.
And it may be that a parent is telling me that they won't leave the house, but I have to find that out from the kid.
Yep.
Because it's no good trying to do something for a young person that the parent wants, unless the young person actually wants it too. Because often, you know, like kids are sent along to therapy. And that's another reason why, as you know, I like the parents to be on the arena with the horses, so that it's a group activity.
But what if you've got an adult who's not able to communicate themselves well? They probably don't even know.
No, well, yes.
You know, so it's you have to try and get that out of them.
Yes, and again, with people, that there are a lot of people who I will tell them what I'm going to do and just look to see whether there's a sign of agreement in terms of, is their face looking or is their face going, you know? People don't always talk with their voices. So again, if somebody is not able to put their finger on it, or if I feel like I'm quizzing them, what I will do is say, well, look, let's just do something, and you can let me know how you feel about it. So it would be something, like let's do something together. And the first thing I would always ask people at a first session, once they've decided they want to do a session, is let's do some work from outside the arena until you're sure that you feel safe enough to go onto the arena with the horses.
Right.
For some people, that doesn't happen for a while.
Okay.
And because they have to trust me and they have to trust the horses. And just because they're here doesn't necessarily mean they're going to trust me. So again, with people who find it hard to articulate what it is they want, I'll say, well, look, let me show you a few things, and I'll go onto the arena and ask the horses to do something, or just generally greet them or brush them, anything. And I said, this is the kind of thing that I would be expecting you to do if you were interested. But at that stage, if this is just a preliminary visit, I still have to gauge whether this person really wants equine therapy or somebody else wants them to go to equine therapy.
That's it.
Yes.
And you're using a show, don't tell method as well, like by actually getting out there with the horses. Yeah.
You can tell people a lot and it doesn't go in. But here's this horse, and I stand behind the horse, because most people will say, oh no, don't stand behind the horse because it'll kick you. And what I really want to reassure people, first of all, is that my horses are safe to stand behind, as long as you don't do anything too sudden. But also, they have to remember that these are my horses and they are safe horses. And if they go to anybody else, they have to remember that rule is it's a fairly good rule. But I don't want them to think that they're going to be kicked if they come on the arena.
Okay. Have you got any particular, success stories of any kind that sort of resonate with you, that you keep thinking about again and thinking, wow, that I can't believe that happened? Or
look, equine therapists always come up with amazing things that horses have done. I think the whole point about equine therapy, when you're really into it, is horses are a metaphor for everyday life. Whatever the horses are telling you, they're telling you in metaphor. And this is a success story that I think is really neat. and it was a long time ago when I had a young man come to me, and he was, all the usual stuff, anxious, and he came of his own accord. It wasn't sent by anybody. And I had him working with one of my old horses that I lost, this horse was he was a lovely Arab horse, very, very interested in things and very, very quirky in his behavior. And there was one point where the client and I were talking, and the horse had sort of wandered off into the other side of the arena and had found a rope on the ground, a lead rope, with a clip on the end of it that you put on horses. And he picked it up and he shook it around a bit. And every now and again, we were still talking, and every now and again he'd do it again, and we'd stop and look and see what he was doing. And at one point, the young guy said, "Oh my God, he's just like my girlfriend. He is continually distracting. And she does that too, but she does it with a biro. If ever I want to talk to her, she starts clicking with a biro, and it stops the conversation because it's just distracting." So we talked a little bit more about how the horse was like his girlfriend. And that was a moment of understanding for him, that he hadn't realized how much that irritated him and how much it got in the way of them having good communications. And of course, there was more to do after that. But that was just a moment when I thought, yeah, that's what this horse does well. He outlines, and the thing is, when you're working with metaphor, again, you'll name the horse. And this horse, he said, "Oh, this horse is like my girlfriend." So there you go.
Is that why the Lone Ranger called his horse Trigger?
Probably. Yeah. I like
nothing to do with guns.
No. It was all to do with trauma. The Lone Ranger was a very traumatized person. Oh, dear.
I was going to just finally ask you, so obviously we've got people from all over the place and they might be interested in seeking this out.
Yeah.
How do they go about finding therapy in the area, particularly equine therapy? Like, what should they look for?
I think go online, have a good look at all the websites that are there. There are a lot of very good people out there nowadays. The amount of training that's been on offer since the sort of the 2000s was when it really started to blossom. And equine therapy has been going for years, centuries. The people, it isn't anything new at the moment, but I think most people have thought it was to do with riding, and has been to do with riding. And it's very good when you do riding. Riding for people with physical disabilities is fabulous. Riding for people with emotional difficulties, intellectual disabilities, it's absolutely fabulous. And there is also, I think, a big reason for going to work with horses on the ground. And it can be on the ground at liberty, no ropes, nothing, or it can be on the ground leading horses around in a headstall. And everything is to do with relationship. It's all to do with creating a relationship where you're learning how to invite rather than demand. You're learning how to feel in control as opposed to feeling out of control. All the things that that people want to know. How do I do this? Oh, well, try it with the horse first.
And also, when you go on.
I was going to say, just make sure that you if you want to find equine therapy, find it online, and then find somebody who's been there and find out if it's good or if it's worked for them. And it won't work for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's quite demanding. I mean, in some way. Having said that, I had one client who came and just wanted to sit with the horse, my old horse, and she sat in the middle of the arena for a whole hour with the horse right next to her, and she was just massaging his front legs, one front leg, then another front leg, and weeping. And she wept for an hour, and she came away and she said, "I so needed that."
Brilliant. I love that.
So it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
You know, let people find their own ways of doing what they need to do at the time.
Which is what a professional can do, as opposed to finding, I don't know, Rainbow Stream, a lovely hippie girl who wears bare feet with the horses, and wants you to connect psychically to them or something like that.
Yeah, yes, I'm not going to try and connect psychically to the horses. And I recommend either. But connection is the really important thing. But it's not a psychic connection. I mean, I could say it's an energetic connection, but it's not like, again, not mystic energy. It's just the energy you put in is really important. And look, there's masses of stuff I haven't said about attunement and scientific stuff about horses' heartbeats, regulating other people's heartbeats, but we can't talk about everything. Yeah. It's taken me years to learn all this. I can't tell you in an hour. But it's fabulous stuff. I'd recommend it to anybody to try. And if you like it, go for it. And if you don't like it, well, try dogs, because dogs are completely different, because they're prey animals. Horses are prey animals and dogs are predator animals. They both are really, really valuable in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, that coexistence plays a big part in our the history of both our species, or all three of our species. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for talking about particularly this therapy. We've been trying to do it for a while now, and I just think it's something that a lot of people probably wouldn't realise just how valuable it can be. And so from my side, I'd be recommending people do go and just experience it at least once, because they might be surprised at the sort of learnings and understandings, and just as I said, that visceral part of it is it can be incredibly powerful for people to go. So yeah, I would highly recommend that people seek out where possible and just try.
I would say so. And it doesn't have to be me. There are a lot of good people around. I have to say, I've just completed an online no bullshit therapy course. And I don't know if you're familiar with no bullshit therapy, and I hope I can say bullshit on your podcast.
Yep, you can.
But I do try to keep things absolutely straight down the line.
Yep.
Reducing the jargon, absolutely, but being honest and fair.
Yes.
Honest and warm. It's important that we have a good relationship. I'm not out there to tell people what to do. And no bullshit therapy is a really good reminder that we're not there to do anything other than just tell it like it is. Oh, that's a terrible phrase. But yeah, let's talk in plain language. Talk in plain language and not try to deliberately obfuscate things. I think it's really important to talk in plain language.
Is there anything else that you would like to utilise as a plugging opportunity?
No, I wouldn't.
Your TikTok, you don't want to mention your TikTok or your...
No. Look, I have as many clients as I need at the moment, so I don't need drum up support. It's nice to have a trickle coming through all the time, because that's the other side of it. I only see 2 clients a day with the horses, because I really don't want to overdo the horses. And it's actually quite intense doing it, because I have to be on the alert the whole time, not just for the therapeutic side of it, but for the horse side of it, and physical safety. So, yeah, I think try anybody and everybody and make sure they've got lovely horses.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much for spending your time talking to us.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Maggie's just the best. Both of our families attend her amazing sessions, and we all get involved, and we just love it. It's something you can enjoy as an individual and also as a family. So go seek out somewhere nearby and give it a go. See how you feel. Well, that's it for this episode. Let's just say I've said all the usual things you're supposed to say at the end of a podcast. We've all listened to them before. We know what they are. So blah, 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 do this, do that, don't do this, do that. Oh, and of course, the next episode's going to be fantastic. It's all about sort of digital technologies, apps and so forth that can help us get through the day, organise ourselves and be aware of ourselves, I've been using a few, so we'll be talking about those, reviewing those, and also talking to someone about how they go about using these tools. Till next time, yippee-yi-yay, mother.
Get down there, doggy.